Hello there. So today in this video, we are going to be talking about 5 ways you may be making your marriage harder than it needs to be. Listen, we all get married because we want to love our lives together, right? We found this person that seems to get us, this person that we are madly in love with, this person that we want to commit to spend the rest of our lives with. We all enter marriage hoping and expecting to be happy, to figure out a way to work through our differences, to be on the same page, to feel loved, appreciated, valued, all of those good things. And for many of us, myself included at seasons, we find ourselves in this place of not enjoying the marriage, of feeling like we just can't get on the same page, that we're not communicating well, that we're not in sync, that we don't even really enjoy spending time together. These are the things that many of my clients come to me experiencing. They are arguing, they're living like roommates, they're in a place where they're not even sure if the marriage is going to survive. And I'm able to really help them get back on the same page to see how, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. I really want you to think about that you and your spouse really want the same thing. You want to be together, you want to be happy, you want your marriage to work. So why isn't it? Why isn't it working? You may be wondering, like, what in the world is going on that is making this so hard? Here are 5 things that I've seen both in my own experience in marriage as well as with many of the clients that I support. So the first thing is that you expect your spouse to think and act like you do. This is so common. And of course you do. Our brains are actually trained to project our experience, our way of thinking, our way of being onto other people. This can be for good or bad, but oftentimes if you're finding that your marriage feels really, really hard, it's because you're frustrated that the way you see things, the way you would go about doing things, the way that you might even treat your spouse is very different than what they're doing. Now, what also happens is we make this mean that the marriage is failing. We make this mean that they're a horrible person, and it doesn't have to be that way at all. There are lots of reasons why your spouse thinks differently than you do, has a different worldview, has a different way of operating and being in your marriage. But when you're judging it, when you're so fixated on them needing to be a certain way, then you can't ever really come to that understanding. But it's that understanding that's going to make your relationship and your experience with each other so much easier, so much smoother, and so much more enjoyable. The second thing that I notice is we don't often tell the truth about what we want. Now, I have a little bit of a people-pleasing tendency, and I think many women do, where we spend a lot of our time trying to accommodate other people, trying to think about what would make someone else happy, obligating ourselves to do things because we think it's the right thing to do, or we think that's what's going to motivate our spouse to do what we want them to do. So we spend a lot of time not really connected to ourselves, not really connected to what is true for us. And in the process, we don't really tell the truth inside to ourselves or externally to our spouse. And whenever you're not being authentic, whenever you're not being true to yourself, things are hard. It's literally like you're shutting off a part of yourself. You're not honoring what you want. You're not honoring what's important to you, which impedes connection. Like you can't really connect with someone if you're not being yourself. So I want you to think about, like, are there times when you're not telling the truth about what you want, or you're not telling the truth about how you really feel? That maybe you are in a place in your marriage where maybe you have been expressing yourself and your spouse just isn't getting it. So now you just deny that there's a problem and you like live in this sort of apathetic place. if that's happening, you want to really go inside and begin to look at, like, what is it that you want? What is true for you? And how can you begin to sort of operate in true authenticity for who you really are? The third thing that I see is we have unquestioned expectations. Listen, expectations, we all have them, right? They are a necessary part of life in many, many ways. But where expectations become a problem is when you don't question them. You just assume that it's the way it should be. You assume that your spouse should be on board, and you don't even look at if it's really true for you. Many of the expectations we have in marriage are actually myths. And there's no one right way to have a marriage. There's only the marriage that you make right for you. I really want you to think about that. There's no right way to be a spouse. There's only the spouse that you make right for you by the way that you think, and the way that you interact, and the way that you show up to that relationship. So whatever expectations you might have right now that are not being met, I want you to question them. I want you to ask yourself, why do I have this expectation? Where did this come from? Does it have to be this way? Are there other ways of getting this met that don't involve my spouse needing to do a complete 180 and be a different person than who they are right now? And then the fourth thing is we have a tendency to focus on what's missing. Our brains are excellent machines. They like to find problems and solve problems. Sometimes they create problems to solve. And so whenever things are feeling off in your marriage and it's feeling hard, when you have that thought, your brain then goes to work to continue to prove it to be true. Our brains like to latch on to certain types of thinking and just put it on repeat. It's literally like an autopilot. And if you were to sort of go inside your brain and assess what are the thoughts you think most often, I'm pretty sure it's a small number of the same thoughts that are just repeated over and over and over again. And so when you begin to focus on what's missing, when that is a thought that's cemented in your brain, that's all you see and that's all you find. And when you're in a marriage where all you're focusing on is what's missing, that's incredibly hard. So the key is to balance your thinking, to think about, what's the other side of this? Where's the good in this relationship? What is it that we're actually doing and doing well? That balanced thinking will create clarity. And when you have clarity, you can come up with proper solutions to move you forward much faster than you would otherwise. The fifth thing that I want to share in terms of why marriage may be feeling hard is we don't often take responsibility for the experience we're having. Let me explain. What I mean by that is we often enter marriage expecting the other person to provide an experience for us. We expect our spouse to make us feel loved. We expect our spouse to make us feel valued and important. We expect our spouse to make us feel appreciated. We expect our spouse to make us feel desired. Now, those are normal human emotions, normal human needs. But when we're only looking to our spouse as the source of those feelings, we become codependent. And if we're not feeling that way, the only way we can achieve it is by them changing. And you never want to be in a position where you are depending on someone else to create an experience for you. And so one of the things I work with my clients on a lot is really taking responsibility. Like, how can you take responsibility for how you're feeling? If you're feeling unloved, if you're feeling like you're not a priority, what are you doing to contribute to that? Many times it's ruminating and finding evidence for where you're not a priority. But when you can take responsibility for that, and when you can recognize that, you know what, the reason I'm feeling this way is more about my perspective and more about my thinking, then you can get to the work that's really going to make the difference in how you feel. And then once you're feeling better, you're going to show up differently to your marriage, when you show up differently, the marriage changes and gets better. So these are things that make marriage hard. I am here to support you in having an easier time in your marriage. I'm here to support you in having a more enjoyable experience in your marriage. I want you to get along. I want you to love being with each other. I want you to feel connected. I want you to feel really secure that your marriage is on a firm foundation, that you picked the right person, and that your marriage is going to last. I am doing a masterclass to extend these ideas and these points and to help you create more ease, more comfort, more joy, more love, more happiness in your marriage. The masterclass is called Marriage Made Easy, because life is hard right now and we need everything we can get our hands on to make our marriages easy. So I want you to register for this masterclass. It is absolutely at no cost to you. And if you cannot make it live, there will be a replay. So you definitely want to register because you're going to get the information whether you can be there live with me on Sunday or not. The other thing that I really want to assure you of is your privacy. This masterclass will be held on Zoom, and the platform and the setting that I have will completely maintain your anonymity. What that means is the only person on camera will be me. The only person you can hear will be me. Your name won't be displayed anywhere. No one will know who else is on the webinar with them. So I want to encourage you to not let some of the shame and the embarrassment and the sensitivity of having some marriage struggles keep you from getting the information you need to make your marriage easier so that you and your spouse can get along and start enjoying each other again. So register with the link per the instructions that have accompanied this video, and I look forward to serving you and joining you on Sunday.